Hey traders, it's John Fortune here with this week's weekly Forex forecast. I hope everybody's having a fantastic weekend. We do have two interest rate decisions coming up. However, the move that we need to pay attention to is in the dollar, up towards the high of the 105.883. This move higher does look to be offering a great opportunity for dollar longs over the next few weeks. If we have a quick look at the economic calendar, you can see we do have a couple of interest rate decisions coming up. First, from the RBA on Tuesday. So if you are looking to trade those Aussie pairs, just bear in mind that the market's unlikely to do anything on Monday and they're going to start to move on Tuesday after the interest rate decision. And we also have the BOC. So we have an interest rate decision out of Canada on Wednesday. Just the same as the RBA, the Canadian dollar pairs are unlikely to do much between Monday and Wednesday and then start to move on Wednesday. So going into next week, the great thing is that the markets which are setting up, looking to offer the best opportunities, are not involving Aussie or CAD pairs. So we have a clear run at those setups next week. Okay, so looking at the scores for the coming week, there are some clear opportunities here. We do have both the Canadian dollar and the Aussie dollar, of course, with the interest rate decisions next week. So they will primarily be determined by those interest rate decisions. And the safest way to trade those is usually to wait for the interest rate decision and then start to trade in the direction of the initial move. So aside from that, we still have the dollar at +2, and we have the New Zealand dollar down here going from -2 to -3. So the New Zealand dollar to the short side is absolutely one of my favorite setups or themes for this week. And also alongside that is the Japanese yen. So Japanese yen shorts and New Zealand dollar shorts are my two favorite themes. And I'm going to be looking at those short versus the Swiss franc, versus the pound. We can also look versus the CAD, but we have the interest rate decision, and also against the dollar. And the third thing we could also consider here is the euro weakness. We are seeing the euro actually turning neutral in the scorecards, going from +1 to 0. So we do have some negative momentum here in the euro. So it's not a fantastic short. New Zealand dollar and Japanese yen are the two favorite shorts next week. But euro dollar we cover every single week, and the negative momentum here in the euro does set up further declines in euro dollar over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so let's have a look at the individual currencies before moving on to the best markets that I have on the watch list this week in Forex. If we start with the dollar index, you can see we did come down, we retested the 7-year breakout, and we closed back above this. And that was quite a significant close, and the move up towards this previous high, which is essentially the point at which this double bottom becomes tested. You know, do we break here with momentum? In which case this is a confirmed reversal pattern to the upside, and that would kickstart or point towards a run towards the highs or the previous high over here. Or do we fail in this area for whatever reason and we start to roll over again to the downside? So that's what's coming up in the dollar. I do think we head higher. I do think we probably break here with momentum. However, near term, we should be focused on the move into the 105.883. Next is the euro. Now again on the weekly, you can see we came back and we tested the top side of this breakout level here. And in fact, which is this low. And in fact, I did say to you in previous videos, we were likely coming down to here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it bounce here. That's what I said to you previously. And then start to fail down here, and the people who buy in here, they pull their long positions. This causes liquidation, ends up coming back down to the second major breakout level. So near term, I would not be surprised to see this correct a little bit higher. Just bear in mind, we've entered a new month, and very often you get corrections against the prevailing trend in that case. So I do think we could see the euro maybe coming a little bit higher, perhaps even consolidating over the week, but that is simply still viewed as an opportunity to look for shorts, say versus the US dollar or some of the stronger currencies. I do not think euro shorts are the best opportunities next week. It is New Zealand and the yen which I like the best for shorts. Next is the pound. The pound has closed back down below this major breakout level. This was where technically a new uptrend started, or conversely could fail. And that's when you get your third wave or your ABC. And at this point, it does look like we're starting to fail. And I would not be surprised to see the pound coming down lower. However, going into next week, you know, versus some of these other currencies, it is actually something I would like to be relatively long. So certainly against the yen and also against the New Zealand, these are two markets, and it paid nicely last week. Pound New Zealand rallied straight into the max profit taking zone. It paid nicely last week. However, if you were involved in that, going into this week, yes, I do think the pound comes down overall, and I think this is indicative of that double bottom break in the DXY weekly. But I do think relatively this still holds up versus especially some of the commodity currencies. Next is the Swiss franc. The Swiss franc is a market I've been highlighting up towards the 1.17 this year, ever since we were down in this area. We've had a nice rally, and now we're just correcting. So it may pop a bit higher, may continue to correct. I do think we're coming back up to this high at least first, and then onwards towards the 1.16, 17 area. However, near term next week, it's likely to be not very good short, but also, you know, relative to the other currencies, is probably going to be a good long. At least that's what the scorecard data is saying. So I am looking for this to rally higher, and going into next week, this is a market I'd like to be long, especially versus the yen and also versus the New Zealand dollar. Next is the yen. Now, the BOJ have been talking about intervention in the yen. However, technically speaking, this is quite a significant break, and it does look like we may be heading back down towards the low. So going into next week, yen shorts, as I said, are on the top of my list against the Swiss franc, the pound, the US dollar, and also the CAD after Wednesday. So we'll look at this. It's in blue as an interest rate decision play, so post-interest rate decision. And those are primarily the currencies I'd like to be long versus the Japanese yen next week. Next is the CAD. The CAD is just very, very choppy. I am expecting this to continue lower, and also looking for this low over here once we break this low. However, what remains to be seen in the Canadian dollar is, are we going to just break and head lower, or are we going to come up and test the 0.75630? This is something we've been discussing for quite a while, this kind of ABC pattern. And maybe we do get that next week. It's been elusive. It's come near to it, then it's sold off. Then it pushes towards it and it sells off. So very, very choppy market. Going into next week, this market is likely to be decided by the interest rate decision. And we are going to look at having the ability to trade the CAD either to the long side or the short side, depending on what happens in the interest rate decision next week. Next is the Australian dollar. We did break the major low over here, and it does look like it's setting up to come down to here and then potentially even onto here. But last week we had an up week, and it's probably because we have that interest rate decision coming up this week. So I am looking for further declines in the Aussie. I am looking for this to come back and test the lows and possibly even onto this low. However, going into next week, this is unlikely to do much until the interest rate decision. And it is that interest rate decision that has the ability to drive this now out of this range, this consolidation that it's been in and is starting to try to break down from. And again, if we get Aussie dollar weakness from the interest rate decision, I would like to look at Aussie US dollar to the downside next week. And finally is the New Zealand dollar. Again, I've highlighted this, first of all, this double top reversal in the weekly, then this ABC consolidation, and now we started to break out. So this should be considered basically a one wave, essentially. And so any pullback in this area over here is absolutely going to be the opportunity to look for shorts, because the next move down towards this low could very well be on the horizon now, especially as we had this breakdown with the interest rate decision. So New Zealand dollar shorts I'm absolutely interested in. They are top of my list for next week alongside Japanese yen shorts. Okay, so let's have a look at the markets themselves, starting as always with crude oil. And last week I was saying to you guys, I've only been looking for shorts in crude oil, either from the upper area where we could look for shorts, or you could look for the breakout intra-week. We're looking on the daily here, and a move down into the max profit taking zone. Look how it came into this zone and rebounded. That was the area where you should have been looking at booking profits on any near-term crude oil shorts last week. Coming into this week, I do once again favor crude oil shorts, and again, we've got both these areas on here for you. So if crude oil continues to correct and it breaks out intra-week, this is an opportunity once again, just as it broke out over here. You see how it breaks out, consolidates, and then you get a nice sell-off into the area. If it breaks down, that's the opportunity to start to look for shorts into the 68 area and a retest of these lows. However, another area you can look for a potential near-term short is if we trade into the 76.50 area, roughly like this. That is an opportunity to also look for a short-term sell in crude oil next week. The final thing to note with crude oil is it's still fairly neutral, and I do not view this as one of the best markets to be trading next week. I think there are better markets next week than crude oil. Okay, so the first Forex pair is franc yen. We've already started selling off, so any pullback in this market is viewed as an opportunity to start to look for bullish breakouts next week into the previous high at the 155.50 area. Next is pound yen. This was a market highlighted to the upside in last week's video, and we did move higher and we finished the week right near the highs. However, we did not take out the max profit taking zone, so any pullback in this area is viewed next week as an opportunity to look for bullish breakouts in this market once again into the 176.50 area. So if we do get into this area, and again, as you can see from last week, plenty of long opportunities in pound yen intra-week. However, if we trade into the max profit taking area, that is where the market is at risk of a reversal. So that is where you should consider booking profits on any near-term long plays next week in pound yen. Next is US dollar yen. We have already started to break out somewhat in US dollar yen. So if we get continued momentum to the upside next week, I'm going to be looking for any pullback in this area. This is viewed as an opportunity next week to look for longs into the 142 area. This is the max profit taking area in US dollar yen. And the final yen pair here is CAD yen. Now we know we have an interest rate decision on Wednesday, so I'm not looking at anything in this market before Wednesday, but you can see we're starting to break out of here with momentum. This is not actually a trend line, there's only 1 point here, but the previous highs over here, I'm actually looking at the horizontal lines. You're breaking out of this with momentum. So any pullback next week, if we start to pull back into Wednesday, and then on Wednesday, you get a break in the direction of this market to the upside, I'm only looking to be long, then I'll be interested in looking for follow through into the 105.75 area. So I'm only interested in being long CAD yen if we get CAD strength from the interest rate decision. Okay, so moving on to the New Zealand pairs, starting with New Zealand franc. This was a market highlighted to look for short opportunities last week. We have now got the pullback and we just spent the week correcting. This is, for anybody not involved from last week, this is still an opportunity to look for shorts down towards the prior low here at the 0.5440. So any continued pullback in this market, I'm going to be looking for potential short opportunities. I'm going to be looking down towards the 0.5430 area. Again, you can look at this previous low here as a near-term technical profit target in this area. Next is pound yen. This was the market highlighted to the upside last week, and we traded right into the max profit taking zone, and that was the move for the week. You can see the profit taking started to come in this area, and we started to get a sell-off in pound yen. So that was a great move up into the max profit taking zone last week. Coming into this week, any continued pullback, and just like New Zealand franc, this is such a steep move, I would not be surprised to see a continued pullback. New Zealand franc, we had the big sell-off and then you had the correction. So markets don't move in a straight line. You know, you have a big sell-off from the interest rate decision, it was in this case from the New Zealand or the RBNZ, and then we have the correction. So any continued pullback, simply viewed as an opportunity to look for longs once again, up to the previous high and into the 2.0775 area. Next is New Zealand dollar. Now again, very similar to New Zealand franc, we have corrected as we saw some profit taking. This was the interest rate decision sell-off, and then we saw some profit taking last week. But this should be viewed nothing more than just a correction. So any continued pullback is the opportunity to start once again to look for breakouts or shorts in this market. I'm going to be looking down towards the 0.5960 area. And the final New Zealand pair here is New Zealand CAD. So again, I am only interested in shorts. That means, or is applying Canadian dollar strength from the interest rate decision on Wednesday. So if we start to pull back in this market and we get a consolidation into Wednesday, and then we get Canadian dollar strength, I am going to be looking for a follow through down towards 0.8050. Next is euro dollar. The US dollar is scoring higher than the euro, and we also have that negative momentum going from 1 to 0. So I am looking further declines. We have started to pull back. I would not be entirely surprised to see this continue to correct into next week, but any continued correction is simply viewed as an opportunity to look for shorts into the 1.0600 area. This is not highlighted in gold as it's not one of the best setups. I prefer these 6 markets highlighted in gold over euro dollar, but I am bearish euro dollar overall heading into next week. Okay, so the final 2 Forex pairs here are Aussie dollar and US dollar CAD, and these are also interest rate decision trades. So US dollar CAD will be based on Canadian dollar weakness. So we've already looked at two markets we can trade Canadian dollar strength on. We'll look at what happens if we get Canadian dollar weakness. I would like to be long US dollar CAD. And with Aussie dollar, this is a market I'm only interested in being short. I will not buy this. If we get a bullish reaction from the interest rate decision out of Australia, I will not be buying this. But if we continue to pull back in this market and then on the interest rate decision we get a sell-off, I'm going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the previous low and into the 0.6480 area. And the final Forex pair here is US dollar CAD. So again, we're looking for potential CAD strength with CAD yen to the upside, New Zealand CAD to the downside. But it's always nice to have a plan B and something we can be reactive with. If US dollar CAD continues to correct down and then on Wednesday we get Canadian dollar weakness and we see this rally, I am going to be looking for further advances in this market up towards the 1.3540 area. So again, with those interest rate decision setups highlighted in blue, always better if you want to be on the safe side, unless you have a very strong conviction about what's going to happen, always better to wait for the initial move and then trade the follow through afterwards. And by having plan Bs as well, we can be reactive rather than predictive of what can generally be fairly unpredictable news events. Okay, so wrapping up the video with gold, silver, and Bitcoin, starting with the gold-silver ratio, you can see we're starting to correct back down, and generally speaking, I mean, we're still kind of in this range here. So I don't have a very strong bias one way or the other in terms of gold and silver. I do prefer shorting gold and silver as well as Bitcoin currently because of the strength of the dollar and that rally that we're looking at up towards the confirmation point of the weekly double bottom in the DXY. It's about here, isn't it? And we're looking for it to come up to here. That will be a headwind to both gold and silver. Okay, so starting with gold, you can see we've already started to sell off here. So any pullback in gold next week is simply viewed, and you can even see in the 4 hours here, we could be forming, as we start to come down and pull back, could form this right shoulder over here. I am looking further declines into the 1905 area. Next is silver. Silver has been correcting off the low, and I am viewing this as a near-term correction. So any continued pullback in this market is simply viewed as an opportunity to look for shorts down towards the prior low here, which sits right in the 2270 area. And last but not least, we have Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is not a market I've really been interested in trading recently. It's just been chopping around, and this is not, in my opinion, one of the best markets. Been looking for it to come down to the 25,000 area roughly, and it's just moved sideways. It came down, it moved sideways, and it bounced up. And so it's really, really choppy. But any pullback in this market on balance is viewed as an opportunity to look for shorts. I only really want to be short down to the 2500 area. So that is it for me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, why not consider joining us in the room each day where I go through these markets and the setups that I'm personally looking at with members on a daily basis for over 75 markets in different asset classes, including stocks, bonds, Forex, and commodities.